Hello, good people. Welcome to One Life Podcast, where we bring you entertainment, we bring you interesting people, we bring you all that you need to know about your one life. And so we are celebrating because we are Africans. And for us to continue with the conversations on Africa Day, I am joined with Lomuthi. Lomuthi, is it Lomuthi?
Lomuthi.
Lomuthi, yes, Lomuthi. Lomuthi is based in Malawi, and she is someone who's very interesting. She does a lot. We all know about her passions. She appears on TV, on camera. She is promoting culture. We will talk about all that makes Lomuthi's one life tick. Lomuthi, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Batanai. Thank you.
I think our viewers want to know, who is Lomuthi?
Well, I'll try and keep it kind of brief. Lomuthi is an African. I'm an African above everything, but I'm also a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. But I think I would probably capture myself as just a servant of the African continent and somebody who wants to contribute, just really, really dearly want to contribute to Africa and Malawians and Malawi itself. Yeah, and I count my kids. I've got two sons, and I count my kids amongst the Africans who I want to impact in this world.
Wow, lovely. You
Yeah,
describe yourself as African first. And
I am.
what does that mean for you to identify as African? Because I meet many people, and some people would not start by saying I'm African. They would just mention other things and probably not even mention Africa or being African
Yeah.
because maybe they're not proud of them being African. Why is Africa so important for your identity?
I think there was a reason why my parents chose to give us African names. I think it was an acknowledgement of our heritage in that aspect. I think I lead with saying I'm African because for a long time maybe I was also not. I didn't anchor myself in that identity, but more and more as I live, I've realized that the root, you cannot cut the root from your rest of your life. And so, where does my root come from? I want to, maybe it's a way of starting from the end and living your life in reverse. So I guess it's what I would like to be remembered. It's based in that. It's based in the spaces in which I want to affect, even represent. Because not only do I want to be in Africa and represent and impact Africa and work in Africa and work for Africa and Africans, I also want to be a representation of it. So I'm a version of African, right? I've lived
Where were you
I've
born?
had the privilege of living in several different countries and living and having part of those countries impact the way in which I live and speak, even the
Mm.
way I look, the way I dress. And for a very long time, it seemed like it was okay to sort of grow and float in the world. But the more I tried to figure out who I was, the more I started to realize that this component of being African really, really mattered a whole lot. And I think it came from conversations like this, that it was like the unknown thread that was that was putting together the fabric that is my life.
So tell us a little bit
I don't
about
know
your
if that makes
background,
sense.
because you said you are the servant of Africa, and so were you not born in Africa? Are you not born in Malawi? Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
So I was born in Malawi at the capital city, Lilongwe. And when I was about 9, I moved. My father worked. He worked for government, and so he was selected to go represent as a deputy ambassador in Paris. And so I moved at around 9. I moved to Paris for the first time, and then moved back to Malawi when I was about 12, 13, and then moved again to Paris. When I moved back to Paris, I also moved to the United States, where I spent considerable amount of time over there, and then moved back to Malawi with a short stint in the UK. So you see how it goes. It's just like I was kind of going this way and that way. Moved back to Malawi, and then moved to Paris again, and then moved back. And now I'm based in Malawi.
Well, lovely.
That's a lot of move, move, move. But yeah, basically I've moved between three countries. Essentially, it's Malawi, France, and the United States.
and that's three continents.
That is the
So different
continents,
cultures
and it's
altogether.
three different cultures. I tell you, it's anyway, it's just part of my life. I don't have a very exotic description of it, but because it's just the way I lived, but it did have an impact on the way I saw myself and the way other people saw me. And yeah, so conversations played a good role in helping to really um, define who I am for myself above all, and then um, be able to kind of move around in the world with confidence, knowing that I know who I am. If I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense to me. It does because
Yeah,
people live lives pretending to be whatever they're not, and not being comfortable with their inner self, with their identity,
sure.
with their whether it's their skin color, and with their type of hair, and and I think it's a shame when to live one's life like that
Hmm.
when one only has to embrace themselves, like you have just said. You manage to do that through conversations, meeting people, traveling as well,
Yes,
and
yes.
that's what we hope everybody is gonna get through with their own journeys to discover
I hope so.
themselves.
Yeah.
But
I think the conversations, especially about what is Africa and what is it to be African, um, maybe it doesn't really play a huge role for a lot of other people, but for me and the people who I've surrounded myself with, um, maybe it's by design, but I think it was accidental at first, and then it felt like home. But the people who I'm surrounded by, um, they too have had, so many experiences in the world. And I often ask, let's say I often ask my husband, you know, where, how he manages to sort of figure out how to anchor himself in things that matter to him. And I think I've always had a great deal of respect for people who are like that. My brother is very much the same way. Um, but it was a specific friend. I have a very good friend. Her name is Lulama Japa. And she is a travel writer. And she's also a partner of mine in one of our projects that we've been working on for a number of years now. Um, but Lulu, she conversations with her really brought it home. So I met my husband many, many years ago, but we got married long after our friendship had, developed. Um, he it was because of him that Lulu comes into my life. His family and him owned a space in a place called Mchinji, Malawi. It's in the west of Lilongwe, and it's about an hour and 10 minutes away from the capital city. And so, anyway, Lulu had decided that she was going to go on a journey, and her first stop, I believe, was Malawi from South Africa. And so, when she came here, she had a couple of people who knew a few people in Malawi, and then they connected them. They connected her to my husband. And the day that I met Lulu, I still remember the day like it was yesterday. Because for a second there, it was just a female traveler, a black African female traveler traveling alone. That stood out to me. I was like, what is this? And then she went off to a different location, but we had agreed that she would come back from that location and come straight to our property in Ginji. And so when that happened, she found me, and I was at that point living in Ginji. And that was the beginning of a very long conversation where I was learning what it was like to be a South African and a Black South African. And this might be controversial when I say this, but she really was the first Black South African whom I had a conversation with. I had never had a deep conversation with a Black South African. So hearing what South Africa was from that perspective, and then also a Black South African woman, hearing that, I started to sort of um, recognize or identify things that resonated with me, even though I'd not had the same experience as her, far from it. We were connecting at a point of respect, and she was so accommodating of my experience, which was at that point, I think it would be fair to say I had on the scale my experience in the in other countries tipped this experience in Africa, and I'd never really found myself in the African sphere and actually identify and be identified as African, or taking offense when people are not so sure where I'm from because of the way I speak or the way I dress or however I present. And then also not feeling like, um, I suppose I'd say, not feeling like a fraud, you know, for wanting to embrace my Africanness. Um, and it's an ongoing thing. I think it's a diaspora problem. A lot of Africans who grew up or spend a lot of time in the diaspora, especially from childhood, I think we have a sense of wanting to belong, and then there's also an element of rejection from Africa at times, and then also like some people experience, now maybe not myself as such, but some people do experience like the self-rejection that we were talking about, where they wouldn't lead with being African because it has implications of maybe in society, um, maybe in terms of clout. I don't know, but I completely understand and I can relate to people who have that internal discrepancy, I suppose, and where what is it to be, especially those from that live and grew up in the diaspora. I think there's this it's a small niche that is not necessarily talked about enough about what it is to come back, what it is to want to return back to Africa, what it is to call yourself African, even when you're representing on the other side of the world. I'm sorry I ramble a little bit, but I hope you're tracking and I'm not kind of veering off topic. But yeah, but Lulu, those conversations, it was two African women, like almost like not opposing, but with very different experiences, and yet we both describe ourselves the same way, and we had a lot to say to each other.
I
And
can imagine.
it gave birth to this concept of we call Wala Africa, which is one of my babies, one of the things I work on and I continue to work on. Wala Africa is sort of an ode, a song for these type of conversations, highlighting the nuanced perspective of Africans for Africans and by Africans, whether it's travel and opulence and exotic stuff that's travel and tourism, and or we're talking about the very deep-seated identity that is Africa, the history, the missing pieces that actually have had an effect, the lack of access to our history. Those type of conversations are the type of conversations we hope Wala Africa will also shine light on eventually. Um, Speaking from the perspective of Wala South Africa, Wala in Chichewa is to shine or to shine light
Oh,
on,
so
or to
shine Africa, show yourself.
yes, it's like show yourself, reveal yourself without any dimness, just arrive, arrive like you are. So it's Wala Africa, but we started in Malawi. We registered as Wala Africa in Malawi, Wala Africa in South Africa. We hope to continue to grow over time and register in different parts and partner with different people in different parts of Africa, and have the Wala Africa Malawi, Wala Africa South Africa. Eventually, it's like Wala Malawi, Wala South Africa, Wala Uganda, Wala Zambia, Wala Zimbabwe, Wala. That's the concept of it, and this is very limited description of it, but I would love for you to also speak to Lulu, and then she could also share her insights on where this idea came from and what we're planning on doing, because I definitely love the yin and yang that we've got going on. And so we cover quite a bit. Yeah.
Just want to take you back to what you said about the challenges that people in the diaspora, especially, experience and face. And I am based in the UK, and I
Yes.
see, and I was saying this also in the other show. I see
Yeah.
a lot of young people of
Sure.
African descent, background. Maybe they were born and came here very young, like what happened to you, and so now that
Yeah.
they're in their 20s or so, it's a bit challenging to navigate, to understand, are they British? Could they identify as British? Sometimes, most
Yeah.
cases, they find it very difficult to identify as such. And
Sure.
I was telling them about my nephew who has the map of Africa on his arm, and for him, like, I might have been born here in the UK, but I identify as Zimbabwean.
Yeah.
Identify as
Yes.
African. So for
Fact.
him, that's very important.
Yeah.
So I think your program, your organization, Wala Africa, is something that is needed. Not only for those
Yeah.
who are in the diaspora, but also for those in Africa, because many people tend to look down upon themselves because of all the all what mainstream media portrays as African. It's always disaster, corruption, all these things
Yeah.
that we are seeing
Sure.
in the Western world.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe those things are a part of it, but there is no perfect family.
Exactly.
There's always something going on. Um, the good, the bad, and the ugly doesn't identify. The bad doesn't the bad cannot it cannot be the identifier. Just like the good, only the good can't be the identifier. And it's like we are all those things. Yes, we're fighting corruption. Yes, the governments have to get themselves together. There's so many, that is nuanced. It's as nuanced in Africa as it is in the UK and is in America or the Middle East. Of course, it presents itself in different ways, but
Mm.
yes, the governments do need to come to, to their senses in a lot of ways. And I don't want to get too political about it, but only because I have a point to make in that, yes, we do have corruption in Malawi, for instance, in Africa. But we also have, a vast number of people who are extremely hardworking and tremendously talented, who not only have are they talented as Malawians, but they contribute in other parts of the world in um in big organizations, and they're very, very productive people. And we do have productive people here in Malawi. And unfortunately, they're not given the platform,
Mm.
in the sense that they don't have the foundation to build up their productivity. So I think of, while I'm speaking, I'm thinking of people who are being productive in the market, people who there's a street in Lilongwe. It's called, we call it, I think it's called Coffin Alley. We call it Coffin Alley. But I remember when I was a little girl, it was such a scary street. It was like, it's a long road, and it stretches from one part of town and it joins onto the main road that cuts through along, like, straight from the top to the bottom of Malawi, and it's called the M1. And so that road, I'm describing it because anybody from Malawi who would hear me describe it would probably know exactly where it is. But for you, it's a very long street.
Mhm.
And when I was a little kid, it was where the carpenters were making coffins. Okay. And it was just scary. It was like these like long hexagonal coffins that look like the Addams family's beds. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And they would be making those coffins in there, and it just felt like death. But fast forward 20, 25 years, 30 years later, these same carpenters are making these incredible designs and making coffins that are padded and like really trending coffins, right? And they're making furniture, and so they have adopted the based on the demand in the Lilongwe, and they're able to provide that product. But you find that it has no real impact. For me personally, I can't see the direct impact to our economy. We're not exporting that product. It's literally just from Malawians in Malawi. It should make a lot of things cheaper, and we should be seeing the effects of that level of development, the mines development, right?
Yeah.
but we don't. And so I think Africa is, sometimes it does feel like it's deliberately being left behind. What those reasons are, you know, I don't want to get into that because I'm an avid and I'm an avid debater. I love debate, but I don't want to get into it. I want to stay on topic. But the bottom line, if I was just to summarize everything and you were gonna um take away from what I'm saying, is that Africa has a lot to offer. Africa is productive and can be productive. Yes, there's a lot of, corruption, but it's not unlike any other part of the world. The only difference is, I think, Africans need to start loving themselves and loving other Africans and caring about the well-being of Africans. Because I think at the moment, people are very fixated with their own experience. And it's just been it's a real shame what comes out of that.
Yeah, we have personalities like as you were talking about, how we fail to notice those people who are hardworking and who are making Africa develop, even though they may have a
Yeah,
small business, but they are resilient and sometimes get
resilience.
mentioned because they're not given the platforms. And one
Yes,
political figure that comes to everybody's mind these days, especially in my world, is
yeah,
Ibrahim Traore, the
yeah,
president
yeah.
of Burkina Faso. The way he is changing the way people think within Africa about development and saying, well, we need to take responsibility of what is ours of this continent, and we need to
Yeah,
ensure that there's food at the table for everyone, and we don't leave anyone.
yeah,
And that's changing something in Africa. Maybe conversations are developing now than before
100%.
about ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we are on a trajectory. If we were to maintain this trajectory, I think that we would come to a place where there is value. So we've how I'll put it is this is I talk a lot about pride and how pride manifests um, productivity in the sense that I've noticed that people, like, I'll speak about Malawi because at least I can be an expert in that. I'm an expert in being Malawi and Malawi. But um, I I've noticed that a lot of Malawians are lacking pride in being Malawian, pride in Malawi. And pride looks a lot like this for me. It looks like valuing what is in front of you, valuing the thing that you've got because you're proud of it.
Yes.
So you asked me at the beginning, why would you lead with being African? Or how come you're leading with that? Because I'm proud of it and I value it. I'm proud
You
Malawian.
wanna
I value
shine.
that. I'm here to Wala. I want to Wala. and and so I think that Troy looks a lot like that. Like he really is proud and he values it. And it shows that he values it in the next actions that support that. I need to protect it. What do you do with things you value? You protect it. You
Yes.
don't just, you're not careless with it. And that's what I mean by when you're proud of something, you value it. When you value something, you protect it, you know. And I really made that link about maybe 4 or 5 years ago where I was like, it's about pride. We don't have pride as Africans. If we did, we would value it. We would value Africa. But of course, there's the geopolitics of it all and, the history of Africa and its value that, it's not just Africans who valued it. And maybe we didn't have too much value. And so we kind of, in a way, gave it away. Um, I know I'm making it sound, I'm simplifying, oversimplifying it, but it's a version of that, right? From at least my interpretation of it. There was a sense of, there was a fight for it, but over time, we relinquished our power and just said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it your way. And we've done it the way of, I don't know if it's offensive to say the Westerners, like,
Well, that's what they
but
call
we've done
themselves.
it, the colonizers
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
certainly.
effect of the colonization, um, we still feel the effects of it. And I think it had a real huge impact on how our upbringing and the way in which we value or didn't value our land. And by land, I don't mean actual land, even though that's a different fight altogether, and it's ongoing. But yeah, I think pride makes you value, and if you value, you protect, and that's just the way I kind of summarize that.
So is this?
And I think Traore really embodies it. Yeah, absolutely.
He does. He does. I mean, he's
Yeah,
very bold and he stands his ground, and that's what I like most about him. He stands his ground and he doesn't
yeah.
care whom he's talking to. He has an agenda, and his agenda is to ensure that his people have security, have freedom, sovereignty,
Hmm.
that they enjoy their one life, because we all have one life. So
Sure.
if I am to join Walla Africa,
Yeah.
are these the conversation type of how does it work in your conversations with people? If I'm
It is.
in South Africa, Walla Africa, South Africa, is it young people coming together? Is it anybody coming and talking about, identity issues? How does it work?
I would say while Africa is a platform to have these conversations,
Okay.
whether it's written form, whether it's photography, and really it's about putting our narrative, an African narrative by Africans, for Africans, and representative of Africans as well. So it's really about shaping the narrative. I have a younger sister, and she studied um, she studied Latin American artists and how they had an impact on identity in that part of the world. I feel like the arts is a great tool. It's easy to relate um, to nuanced ideas and ideologies when the artist is able to sort of you know formulate. And I say formulate because I don't want to limit art to something that's only visual. It is audio, it is taste, it is it is texture,
Expression as well.
it's full expression. So while Africa is really trying to become a tool for that expression,
Mm.
join the narrative and join the shaping of the narrative and join the conversation and contribute positively to the African identity. And that's the way I would put it. So yes, anybody can join, and we're just hoping that we're going to create a platform. It's a magazine, like I said. We
Okay.
would we plan on being online because we're not dinosaurs. We appreciate the fact that the world is expanding in all sorts of directions using the web. Um, I'm old enough to be like the World Wide Web instead of just saying the internet.
What you used to call it.
I'm old enough to say that.
Yes, you are.
But using
I
the
remember when you.
internet, you know what I mean? I still say the Facebook, you know? Instead of just saying Facebook, I'll be like, the Facebook. It's like, no, you please don't say that. So, but we do hope to be a platform
Mm.
and to grow and create very organic partnerships with people who also value have the same values, and want to share with the world the values that we hold as well. Fashion is a very big one for me. I really, really would love to, um, and I'll share a link with you after this. An article Lulama she wrote, but it really talks about how African culture really has should be getting a lot more credit for fashion as we see it. And there's another, Vanu Vamwe.
One long way.
Have you heard of Vanu Vamwe?
No.
The she they make bags. The founder of Vanu Vamwe had this incredible um, post that she put on Instagram. But that's the kind of conversation. I'll share that with you as well. I think
And
that'll be interesting for you.
we'll have the link in the description so people can follow.
Absolutely. I would be happy, please, if you can, then people can go. They make such beautiful, beautiful pieces, and they've really anchored themselves in their African identity, but they're not only African. Like it's something that's quite how do I put it? It's a very modern piece. You should just go see for yourself. And please, I'm encouraging your listeners to go up on Instagram and check out Vanu Vamwe. But the point is, fashion, that's another way of expressing, and it's such an easy way for people to um to relate to what we mean by African. I was commenting on your attire there. Trust me, I'm actually going to get one of these ones made in the chitenje because
Oh,
I
the
really
thing
like this. I love the chitenje, right? Um, and I was looking for something with chitenje because I wanted something to come on and to represent Malawi in that way. But it's fashion as well. That it works. Fashion has a huge impact on how we see ourselves and how we perceive ourselves. Just changing how you dress. And I have a friend who um she always has, it's actually Lulu. She always has something on her that just has speaks about Africa, and it can start a conversation as well.
music. You have a passion for music, um, and creative arts. Tell me
I
something
do.
about that passion.
Okay. So I am not an artist myself, but I am a very passionate consumer of the arts. I just love the arts. And I think we talked a little bit more earlier about how I view art and its impact that it can have on development in the economies, particularly in Africa and particularly even more specifically in Malawi. But yes, I'm a very passionate consumer. I specific to in the arts, it'd be um oh, let me go back. I'm gonna go backwards.
It's okay.
I
I'll
lost my
cut
train
it.
of thought. Okay, I'll start again. Yes, I'm a very passionate consumer of the arts. I'm very passionate supporter of artists. Um, under a different brand that I'm a part of is the Geisa Creative Center. It's a creative center that was founded by my husband, myself, and a few other friends, including Lulama and Eric Baliani. And there's another artist who then went on to do their own thing, but she was part of the core team initially. Um, and so jazz came very organically because Eric is involved, but jazz came to me through a different experience altogether. Jazz came to me when I was living in Paris. That's
Mm.
where I discovered, yeah, it's it's the craziest thing for me because of how anchored jazz is in the African identity, and Quincy Jones, and anybody should look up how Quincy Jones describes hip hop or jazz. And he really, really speaks very, very passionately about it as well. But yes, we have a place called Kaisa Creative Center. And through the Kaisa Creative Center, we've really tried to promote the creative space in Malawi. We covered anything from copyright, music, jazz, of course, but also locally curated music, the drums, gulewam kulu. We've
Gule
also got
Wankulu,
ingoma.
pe.
Yeah,
I
really.
love Gule
And
Wankulu.
of course, we worked a lot with Tamba Africa, and they've come and we've hosted them. And, there's been a lot of musical exchanges, students coming in from Mozambique and Zimbabwe. And it's been a real passion project, Kaisa Creative Center. But under the Kaisa umbrella, we've also worked with artists. And a good example would be Maggie Kadram, who's an incredible Afro jazz musician. She recorded her entire album, and you guys should look it up. Maggie Kadram. It's called Inquiza. That's the name of her album. Please look her up. She's on. I don't mean to. Okay. You know what? I'm shamelessly plugging Maggie Kadram. Okay, she's an incredible artist. You should look her up. But yeah, I've also worked with KBG. KBG is another artist. He's not only a musical artist, but he's also, I would just say, just all encompassing in the arts. He does everything from live streaming to producing to making videos and supporting other artists as well. So yeah, I hope I'm answering your question.
Yes,
But
certainly.
I'm a very passionate consumer of
You,
passionate
you
consumer of the arts.
you are certainly in the industry, and you said you have worked with maybe the management of female artists as well.
I did. Okay, so Maggie is the artist I really jumped in on. Like I jumped in like head first. I'd never done anything in management. I had never seen the process from start to finish, with in terms of producing an album. And
Yeah,
so really managing that project and helping, and by managing I mean like really the creative direction and working. She manages herself, and we myself and Lulu, um, we really we really tried to push for her to be an independent artist. And a lot of people, a lot of female artists in Malawi are managed by male. They have male managers, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it was a very different experience to have a woman, um, from start to finish manage her own project, and then us just helping and managing the elements that sort of fall fall around her and surround her in terms of creative direction, um, production, timelines, and scheduling, and making sure that she was, on brand, and making sure that she didn't fall too far behind. And I think Lulu did a great job of also connecting her with producers in South Africa. And Eric Paliani played such a pivotal role. He was such a huge supporter of Maggie Kadram as well. And I don't know if you've ever been in a room full of artists or musicians.
I have been.
It's something else.
I mean, they are the craziest people to be with. I
Oh,
think so.
they're very interesting, and it's just the when they come in and I think a true artist is like they fully embody themselves, and then you have people who are in the room and who are fully embodying themselves, and they have something to say about the space. It can get very tense, but it can be very productive, and that's what yeah. But anyway, I don't know if I'm gonna go back into it. I've been asked to manage, and I've wanted to. There's one other artist who, if I were to get involved, I'd still encourage her to self-manage, and then just help with the creative direction in terms of like the outlook and the branding aspect of it, because that's really my forte. I went to school for it, and but I am also very passionate about it. I have a bachelor's degree in public relations, and so that aspect of marketing and branding it's pretty intuitive for me. We were talking about the African dogs. There they go barking. I don't know if you can hear them.
I can hear some barking there. But let's talk about your love for photography.
Okay. Yeah. I am. Which part? Um,
Tell me, where does
I
it
do
come
love
from and what does it do to you? What does it represent for you?
it came on its own. I can't actually remember a time when I did not love cameras. I absolutely love cameras, and I love looking at photography, and I love analyzing photography. I think it comes from it's just in it's in it was just inherent in my makeup. My father also was My late father loved photography as well. He loved taking photos. And since I was maybe 8, they'd hand me the photo, like a camera, and I'd take photos. But then the other aspect of the reason why I don't take photos now, actively, is because I have a huge respect for photography. I Yeah, I think that there's something extremely spiritual about capturing life and
Mm.
making it still. Nobody can make time stand still, except photography seems to kind of do that. And so I love capturing life. And so I don't take it lightly, and I tend to have a real respect for it, for that process. And I look up to a lot of people who can just grab a camera and just point and shoot and get it done. But for me, it's like
Coffee.
another type of story. Yeah, selfie. But for me, it's another form of storytelling. And so I have a huge respect for that process. So yeah, photography is a big one. Hopefully one day I can do it. I can take some photos and and be able to share those. I have some good friends who I have a good friend, Maria Tundu. She's an incredible and very established photographer as well. And I'd be happy to put you in touch with her, and you can have a chat about her process and how she goes about things.
Could be nice. Could be nice. Would be nice for everybody
Yeah.
to know. I mean, I'm
I'm like I'm shamelessly plugging people. I'm
you
like
are
in
you're
there.
doing very well. I think you're part of One Life. I may need a manager to manage me since you say that's what you're good at.
Oh man, it's another conversation. One day when your podcast, you should cover managing and management for creatives in Africa, and I would love to see what other people's experiences have been in terms of when managing artists or spaces. I would love to hear from other managers. It's
Oti, let me ask you this question that I ask everybody on this show. One Life.
okay.
What One Life mean for you, and how can you inspire others with your One Life, or how can the others be inspired by your One Life?
That is such a heavy question.
I
That's a
saved
good
the
question.
heaviest
I think
question for
that's a
last.
good question. Yeah, sorry.
I kept the heaviest question for last.
Well, um, one life. I really like how you described that what would you do with your one life? I'd say be honest. Be honest. Um, pursue everything with honesty and do not do not get discouraged along the way. I'm also, I'm not where I started when I look back, but I'm not where I want to be yet. And every time I remember when I was in college, I would be walking to school. It would take me 30 minutes. And every day I'd get so, you know, discouraged. I would be tired and I'd say, just walk out the door. Just walk out the door. Or just get out the bed. Just take a shower. Just walk out the door. And then just keep walking. And then look behind. It's like you've already taken a shower. You've already gone out the house. You've already done this and you've done that. You're here now. And I would encourage people to, I would encourage people, sorry,
Okay.
I'll start again. You've already gotten out the door. You're already out there. You're walking. You've made it halfway through. And always just think of that and celebrate it. But if I were to give one word about one life and how to live it, I'd say honesty. With honesty, just be honest about you. Do not be somebody else. Do not try to do things that do not are not symbolic of who you are. And it takes time. And I think the older I get, maybe it's becoming a little bit more easier. And so I take it for granted that my experience has brought me this far. But for somebody who's just getting started, is just get out the shower, get out the door, get started. Just get started and see where that goes. There's so many things I've started and stopped, but I know that there's going to be a time where that start is going to catch up to where I'm at, and I'll be able to go back to it, and it'll tie into each other. It has so far, and I'm in this new space now where I'm ready to start putting these pieces together, So what I do now is not what I was doing a year ago. But now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, all right, I can see how this works with this. And here we are doing this podcast, talking about all these different aspects of my life. So one life, one day, somebody will tell your story and it'll all come together.
And it will be a
And just get
well-lived
started.
life, isn't it? That's what we want, to live life fully. And I always tell people, live your life fully.
Fully.
And honesty, you mentioned being honest to yourself and embracing yourself. And that's the way we can make our one life count on
Yes.
this earth.
Yes.
And young people, I hope you are listening well. Take the step. Don't sit down and procrastinate. Procrastination is becoming a big issue, to be honest. But you need to take the step so that
Yeah.
you can, begin the journey. It will come to an end. Wherever it comes to an end, your life will be count
Yeah.
and do what you like doing and have the conversations. If you want to
Yes.
question yourself, identity, or you want to, fully understand yourself, or join Wala Africa. They have conversations, isn't it? I'm doing now a
Follow,
promotion for
follow
you.
Wala Africa. Thank you for plugging us. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So the descriptions is down below. Follow them on Instagram, on their social medias, and be part of the conversation that transform lives, that helps you identify yourself, and that makes you love who you are as an African. Any final words to our viewers?
I would just say, love your one life.
Thank you so much, Lomuthi.
You're
It has
welcome.
been lovely talking to you. I can't wait to visit Malawi and be part and parcel of the conversations because I love talking as well. And
Oh, yeah, you should.
when
I'm
like
looking
when
forward.
I
I,
visit
I look
Africa,
forward to you visiting.
thank you
Yeah,
so much, and thank you
come
for
on
being
down.
thank you for
You're
being
welcome.
with us on One Life Podcast. And happy Africa Day. I hope to. What are you going to do today? I have to ask you this question.
Pardon?
What
Oh,
What are your
well,
plans for Africa Day? How are you celebrating?
unfortunately, I I'm gonna be taking care of a very, very, very cute little 4-year-old boy today. I don't have much planned. Although I was hoping to go to watch some jazz because Eric Paliani is playing at a venue called the Baraza. And
Mm.
so I would have loved to go there. And if it starts a little later, and so hopefully I can still make it. But that would be, I think that's gonna be a treat.
Wow. Anyway, being with a 4-year-old is also a good day because you are taking
That
care of
little
the future
4-year-old.
of Africa. We want you to make sure that that future of Africa is well fed
Yeah,
and
yeah.
is enjoying his one life. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank,
see you soon. Voila, Africa.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.